Welcome everyone to an episode of the Old Timers Comic Book Show. I am your host, joining Machine Hughes, and joining me, as always, we have the Professor.
Hi, Johnny. How are you?
I'm very well. Even better now that a certain Brady is no longer in the playoffs.
Well, and maybe never again.
Never
So
again. Never. We
let's
can but hope.
let's hope that's false news.
Hmm. And on that note, 13th.
Yes, I agree with Machine already. And I just walked in here.
You can't. You can't come. You can't agree with me so soon, so quick.
Yeah. Well, you
Yeah.
know what? One thing Brady couldn't do, couldn't beat Eli Manning in a Super Bowl. He had to hang in there at least 2 more seasons to tie him to do that. But
Yeah.
Manning's gone. Don't matter.
Is that your claim to fame? Is it the Giants beat Brady twice in the Super Bowl?
No, no. Well, remember they also defeated an undefeated Patriots team, so it was a team effort. I know. I'm sure Bud remembers very well.
Um, I do, I do.
We
Of
have.
course, it pales in comparison to all the other good memories that we have.
Well,
Yeah, I was
that's
going to
against all
say.
the other teams and stuff.
Don't. Yeah, you can't rub it in too much. Over here we have on one of the color commentators for BBC. We have Ossie Menuyure. I know
Hmm.
I've said his name wrong.
Also, your manure.
There you go. And he is absolutely brilliant. And he never shuts up about being a two-time
Yeah. He
Super
was a
Bowl
good.
winner.
He was good. He was a good player. Solid.
Yeah,
He really was. He knows his stuff. There's no doubt
yeah,
about that.
cool. All right, excellent. Okay, so we'll stick a pin in the football talks. We might get some predictions later on in the show. But we're here to talk about comics. And we haven't really got a theme this time around, although we somehow have kind of fell into a theme, I guess. Is probably a safe way to go with this. So we're going up for our first book, which is Marvel Spotlight number 5.
Volume
And
one.
then, sorry?
Volume one.
Volume 1. And there you go. It's the first appearance of this dude. So it's Ghost Rider, as everyone can see. This came out in August 72. First appearance of Ghost Rider and Johnny Blaze. So eBay could not believe it. Guess how much eBay has this book on?
$1,300.
No, it's going to be like cheaper than that. Was it like
Really?
500?
All right. So for this book on eBay, it was £1,020.
Wow.
And when you go look for it over on Go Collect, it is 43. I think it's 43,000. You know.
For what?
4,300.
No,
40.
well, let me just double check because I looked at it once. I was like, well,
Yeah, I'd love to know the condition of that because
no, I'm right. 43,000.
holy CG seed.
Yeah, 9.6.
Oh, that's why.
A 9.2 is 18.5. A 9 is 8.2, and an 8 is 4.7.
You know the
Mhm.
great thing about a 9.6 Ghost Rider for Marvel Spotlight number 5?
Doesn't exist.
Nope, can't read it
I can't read it.
because it's slabbed.
Exactly.
Oh, don't get me started about slabs.
Yep.
We have a whole issue with slabs.
Yeah.
Mm.
That I do own this book and I do not have it slabbed and I was able to read it.
I was going to say it's kind
I'm
of
so
one of
sorry.
these. Well, you've brought up slabs, so let's let's run the table on slabs. For those that aren't aware, 13th, what's slabbed?
When you encase your comic book so it could stay preserved. Short
There you
explanation, pretty much.
go.
Kind of
You
like
could.
a fly in amber, like a fossil.
Exactly.
All right.
And you
So
pay loads
what's
of money to have that done as well.
yeah?
Yep.
So what's the benefits of this book of this process then?
If you're gonna sell it, that's the only benefit.
Yes.
I agree with the
So
professor. I think the benefit selling it outweighs the benefit of the preservation of it. And I heard some rumors too that even if you slab a book, after a certain length of time, you may even have to get it reevaluated again.
right. So when we talk about slabbing a book, it's the protection field. Don't you also have to get CG seed
Yep.
to verify its condition? So, Professor, what's CGC? We talk about it a lot.
That is when you get your comic graded as far as Does it have any dings in it? Does it look like it's like a mint condition, hot off the presses copy, not bent, not torn, not white pages, stuff like that?
There you go. Excellent. So, can anybody CGC a book? What do we think? Or can only certain people do it?
Well, they're called agents.
Yeah, there you go. So you've got to qualify to be a comic book grader.
Correct.
Cool.
Yeah. I sent you some pics of my actual copy of this book, and you guys can tell me what grade it is.
Okay, let's have a look. Let me just sort that out for you. Share. Yeah. Where is it?
I don't know why you would want to buy a comic if you can't read it, but
Agreed.
This is the old timers comic
Yeah,
book
yeah.
show. We talk about actually reading the comics as opposed to putting it away.
There you go. There it is. There's your copy.
That is my actual copy of
I
Marvel
think it's
Spotlight
a bit.
5.
It's a bit dinged on the top corner there.
Mm-hmm.
You've got some creases going along the edge there. Something like the cover is off center with the rest of the book a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry to be a spoil sport.
No, we agree so far.
There are some. It looks like there's some spine. Is there some spine damage there?
Mm-hmm. Slight.
And there's a slight spine roll from the word "or" downwards. I would probably give that a 6 if I was saying off the top of my head.
We agree. Take a look at the interior.
Oh, I didn't download the interior one. Hang on.
How dare you?
Well, I'm going to look at it.
You also gotta look at the interior, my friend, because part of the grading is if the pages are white, off white, and then you got to pay extra if you need it restored.
There it is. Give me 2 seconds, and I will get this saved, and then we can show you this as well.
Something that's off center could be pressed before it's encased in amber, as the professor so eloquently put it.
Well, I don't know if I would ever buy a slabbed book.
I only have one slab book, and that's the first Grendel, because I had no choice. I couldn't find the actual book unslabbed.
Did you break it out of the slab?
I've thought about it a couple of times until the show got announced, and now in slab, it's worth a ton of money, so I'm leaving it alone.
So the pages look pretty white on this. There's a nice curvature to the left page when you roll it over. So obviously it's keeping its spine relatively intact. It looks like there is some discoloration across the top of the dude doing some motorcycle. I'm still happy with my 6, to be fair.
Can you share that page so I can see it?
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with the 6.
So it's got some nice when it opens up lovely. This page is particularly white. There is some discoloration across the top there, which I think is probably the thing that I would kind of question.
You know what's amazing?
There you go. I don't know if
this
you
is
can see it. Does that make it any better? Oh yeah.
There's a 50-year-old book.
It's good copy. It's good condition for 50. I wish I looked as good at 50.
Well, you know what? I think it looks very readable. So
definitely,
that's why I would get it.
Yeah, the ink smells pretty good on this. Just throwing that out there.
Oh, you and your ink fetish. Oh my god. Is it true that you walk around stationery shops just smelling pens?
Oh hell yeah.
Pervert.
There are differences in ink.
I don't even want to go there. All right, here we go. So we'll go for the facts and the figures of the book. Thank you for sharing those.
Of course.
13. Of course, if you have got photos of your books, by all means, send them across and we can get them shown. I'll show the whole collection in a little bit. Right, so where we at? It is Marvel Spotlight number 5, as I said, August 72. It's written by and conceived by, let's get this right, because Professor, there's some controversy over this, isn't there? The conceived element, but it's Gary Friedrich,
Right.
art by Mike Plog, and letters by John Costa, who we all know, of course, is John Costanza, not the coffee shop place around the corner. Remind me, Professor. Sorry, 13th was your pick, right? Who picked?
This was 13. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Cool. Right. 13th. Take it away.
I will. Long and short of this, this is the origin of the original Ghost Rider, aka Johnny Blaze. And if you have no idea, like there's been so many different Ghost Riders after this. This is where, well, I don't want to say where this is where it all started because there was another Ghost Rider before this one, the Western one, if anybody remembers that one.
Mhm.
But
Yeah.
this one took a whole different spin. And one of the things with Marvel in the 70s was you would get a lot of supernatural type eerie stories, uh, demonic, etc. So Ghost Rider was no different. It fell into that genre. It really was a different type of character for
Mhm.
Marvel. And I love the origin of this because they didn't waste any time with showing you what the character looked like. First of all, I love this cover of the book. And I love the what do you call that on the top left corner? The box
Oh
of
yeah,
Ghost
yeah.
Rider with the box with the bike. I love that. The lettering, I was like, okay, this is different.
Mhm.
You know, a legend is born. Can we say he is a legend? I know he's up there. You know, this character's been around, like we said, for so many decades. It's seen different iterations, but sticking to this book, Johnny Blaze, it's giving you a snapshot of what Ghost Rider looks like, and you're along. What a bad pun! You're there for the ride with Johnny Blaze.
Ugh.
So you get to see that Ghost Rider is not just a full demon. There is a human behind that skull, the iconic bike, the skull face, and then it goes right into the origin of Johnny Blaze. And I hate this. Like when I was reading this book, I couldn't get the Nicolas Cage Ghost Rider movie out of my brain, and I was like, "That's not how it was in the movie." Well, here, the chances are that the books are going to be probably more detailed, and they're going to include things that you didn't see in the movie. And I'm going to have a comment later for when the next book that we're going to do later on. But you're going to get a good detailed history of who Johnny Blaze is, what happened to him. He suffered trauma, lost his parents, adopted by another family, and accidents happened. But what was kind of disappointing in a way that Johnny Blaze is like, well, you know, my adopted mother, died, and then now my adopted father is sick. What's my solution? I know. Let me make a deal with the devil. Great idea. Great.
Because they
So,
always work out well.
yeah,
Mm.
but sure, this was what Marvel was doing back in this era with when it came to the occult and the supernatural, demonic and things like that.
Oh, look,
And
he's kissing his sister. Oh.
yeah, yes, he did a
Mm.
Luke Skywalker, Princess Leia thing there.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, but yeah, so he makes a deal with the devil. You don't see the devil's full face in this issue. He was called Satan, and again, as I said, there were many iterations of Ghost Rider and some retconning as to who this demon was. Later on, it was retcon to Mephisto. Then they're like, no, it's the actual Satan. No, it's not the real. Either
It's
way,
Mephisto. It's Mephisto. We all know it's Mephisto.
either way, he was bonded to another demon in servitude of the devil. And true to form, the devil makes his deal to make sure that his adopted father is cured of the disease that was gonna. He had a terminal disease, and
Yeah.
the dad dies anyways after a motorcycle accident. And that's you kind of do see that in the movie with
Mhm.
like trauma and things like that. But I feel like the book just captured everything in so much more detail, including the fact that Roxanne, who was kind of his adopted family, his sister, but they eventually became an item, to use words from the past.
Mm.
But she knew what Johnny was up to, not to be confused with Johnny the Machine, but she knew what Johnny was up to and read the same occult stuff that he did and knew how to help him to a degree. But as they say, the rest is history. Johnny Blaze had a problem. He was cursed with becoming the Ghost Rider persona at night. This wasn't easy to keep hidden. It did bring some problems
Mm.
later on in the future. I mean, this run lasted quite a bit. Things were never really the same with Roxanne. It's always on and off. But Ghost Rider had some good adventures. He's one of those characters in my opinion that is just functions better on his own. Like I know he was with the champions and
The
things like that.
champions, go on, son.
Johnny's favorite
Go
team. I
on.
had to mention it in there for you. But that's fine and everything, but I just feel like he was just better as a solo act. I don't know. That's just my opinion. But for 1972, I think this was a good book, a great origin. You got a lot of detail in here, and the art's, in my opinion, pretty solid too. So,
Mm.
and I do own this book, as I said, and I rarely take it out to read. I did take it out to read it for this podcast, so I had a. It's there's no better feeling than actually holding it in your hands. eh, You know, when you're reading the book, that's what they're meant for. So.
Exactly right.
Yeah.
So, Professor, are you a Ghost Rider fan of the Johnny Blaze iteration?
I never really was, but I want to talk. 1972. The era that this book came out of was when Marvel was really going through their horror phase. They had just recently kind of lightened up on the restrictions of the Comics Code and started doing Tomb of Dracula and Werewolf by Night and Man Thing, and that's where Mike Pluke came from, like doing Man Thing and some of those monster books. And Pluke had a big history doing the horror comics, I think, for EC, I think too.
Okay.
But you're right, when you with the creation of Ghost Rider, conceived by Mike Friedrich. But Roy Thomas will tell you that he created Ghost Rider.
Right. So I mentioned there was a controversy as I was going through the stats. So,
Right.
Professor, educate us. What's the controversy over Ghost Rider then?
Well, so this happens a lot with Roy Thomas. Is Roy Thomas conceives of a character, creates the character, but then hands them off to another writer who fleshes them out. And Roy Thomas ends up at the end of the day taking full creative credit, right? So
the Stanley method then, allegedly.
yeah,
I said allegedly. I'm fine. I can say
it's
allegedly.
at the end of the day, I do believe so much of Marvel was a co-creating kind of credit, right? So nobody gets full on 100% credit for creating a lot of these characters, but you'll see. I mean, Roy Thomas will gladly take half credit of the Wolverine creation too, which I don't really, I don't know about it.
Wait. How's Roy Thomas come anywhere near Wolverine? Because wasn't it Herb?
The editor on Hulk when Herb
Len
Yeah.
and Len Wein, when they did the that Hulk issue, Roy Thomas was the editor, and he says he created the concept of the character that then Wein and Trimpe fleshed out.
This is bullshit. Pardon my French. Sorry for those listening. It was recently. I mean, Len Wein's no longer with us, right? So when he passed away,
and neither is Trimpe, by the way.
Yeah,
right.
There was a huge the Marvel comics at the time were given the usual kind of in passing page that they're doing, and they in their own books cited him for being the creator of Wolverine, not co-creator. So it's like,
Can I throw something in here too? Like the Marvel Spotlight run in itself was really a testing grounds for characters. Like,
absolutely.
Hey, I don't know if this is gonna work, but let's try it. If people like we get letters, right? You had to write letters to Marvel back then, saying like they were up, like, wow, yeah, this is great. Bring him again. Ghost Rider had a few issues in Marvel Spotlight, so this character took off. You always notice how when characters take off, then all of a sudden you get these conversations of who came up with the idea. But if it's the Marvel Spotlight of someone like who, people are like, oh, I didn't do that.
I don't know.
Yeah, exactly.
So, I mean, we get back to Ghost Rider specifically. The concept of the character, I mean, he looks visually, he's cool, right?
I love it.
But it is when you read the story through, it is kind of jarring. And 13 already brought it up that, I lost all these people close to me in my life. And now my stepfather or my adoptive father is sick with cancer. let me bust out all of my satanic ritual books and paint my chest and summon a demon. I was like, oh my God. And that's, that's going to tell you like what people were afraid of in 1972, right?
Right.
I mean,
Yeah.
this is what people were thinking that there were people out there, sacrificing goats and dogs and,
Yeah,
in
that was a
cemeteries
bad
and stuff like,
idea.
yeah,
You had to ram it in, didn't you?
Yeah.
Jesus Christ, guys.
No, he's not in this.
You wouldn't believe it.
Right. So yeah, the other thing I'm sitting there is going like, why wouldn't he go? Why wouldn't he pray to God? Why wouldn't
Yeah.
he do some other things? And then of course, seeing Roxanne through this issue, I just thought that it was very erratically written, where
Great.
she's like, you're a coward. I love you. No, you're really a coward because you won't do the thing. I'm mad at you that you did the jump.
She's
Oh,
bipolar.
I swear to God, you've read my notes. I read this book. I was like, Blaze can't do anything wrong. It's like, no, I'm not taking over the show. You're a coward. Fine, I'll take over the show. No, I'll kill your dad. That's not good enough. I'll do the jump your dad can't do. Well, why are you trying to put my dad down? It's like, for Christ's sakes.
I
Yep.
knew you were reading into the occult. I didn't stop you until after you made the deal.
Oh, I swear.
So yeah, I mean the writing on this is a little suspect. I don't know if they thought that this character was going to take off, right? So
Yeah, that's a fair shout, actually,
that's
Professor
that's
X.
where I mean, if you ever read through Marvel Spotlight, there's a ton of one and done characters that
Right.
they'll throw an issue and you're just like, whoa, this is bad. and
Yeah.
and luckily you never see these characters again. But Ghost Rider was one that for some reason or other became trendy, right?
Mhm.
And really kind of took over the horror aspect of the book, and it was the first book I think that really kind of melded horror with superheroes.
Right.
Right. So I mean, if you did Tomb of Dracula, you were just getting Dracula. You didn't really. I think Doctor Strange shows up late in the run for a one and done, and then Werewolf by Night. Yeah, you get Moon Knight. Yeah, maybe you get a couple of other different characters in there, but for the most part, it is what it is. But and they actually did a Frankenstein book too, which was not good. But
Well, I think Man Thing's one of those kind of
right.
unsung heroes that you kind of, you read, you think, what the hell's going on with this? But it's really, some of it can be really out there and really good fun. And
There is a following for that.
yeah,
Right.
Those
definitely.
books. Yeah.
One more thing I'll say about this book, and this is one of the I want to call it like a trope from the 70s that they did in a lot of different horror books, was they wrote the book like you were Johnny Blaze, right? Like the author is talking to you like,
Yeah.
this is what's happening to you, Johnny Blaze. Oh, I'm Johnny Blaze, and that's I think that's so that it psychologically gets in your head that, oh man, what I did a deal with the devil, I did this and that, and they do that do that in this, and they do that in Man Thing. They did it quite a bit in the 70s. So
I'd do it for Dolphins winning the Super Bowl, but hey ho. So
Can I just give a quick shout out to Keith Williams? So he's the artist that drew the avatar I'm using for today's show.
okay.
But we met him a few months ago.
Yes.
What a nice gentleman. Really, really nice guy. And he's done some phenomenal pieces, but I bought this off him. It was his last print of this particular version of Ghost Rider. So he signed it for me, had a great conversation with him, but this is perfect. And I noticed like the only difference that he did was he colored the belt, like kind of gave it the fire look and the chain, which obviously is different from the book we're looking at today. But this version of Ghost Rider is my favorite.
Cool. Excellent. Marvel Spotlight and Ghost Rider didn't have, at least in my neck of the woods, wasn't around a great deal. I think when I was a kid growing up, my influences of Ghost Rider were on guest shots, maybe the odd Champions book here and there. Going back and reading it now, yeah, this one's a little bit klutzy, a little bit. The Roxanne character is all over the place.
Yeah.
And I mean, Johnny Blaze himself isn't exactly the nicest of guys. Um, but for what it does, for setting up the things that we know that's going to happen down the line, I think it's a great little book. I absolutely thoroughly enjoyed reading it. I thought the art still stood up. You know, the characters look great. Roxy's curvy in all the right places. I will say that panel here of Johnny's a little bit Carmine Infantino style wise, which I find a little bit jarring when you think how the rest of it isn't like that at all. But you know, I kind of as an overall, I enjoyed reading this. I thought it was a decent blast from the past. Thank you for picking it. Absolutely.
Mm-hmm.
Cool.
Yeah.
Right, we'll take a quick break before we get into our next book. You'll be pleased to know it's not a Champions book. I don't know why. I don't know why you'd even not want a Champions book, but hey. Oh.
When you read the Champions, do you put the "We Are the Champions" song in the background, or
No.
okay, just checking.
I play the Champions TV theme.
Of course.
All right, so here's an advert. You know what? There's a lot of good stuff, cool stuff happening over on Marvel at the moment. You should be checking out. So if you're going to check out Marvel, you need to check out this show. There you go, the No Prize podcast featuring the Professor and PowerPoint Man. Just that PowerPoint on there?
Oh, hey, if you like PowerPoints, you will love this episode dropping Tuesday.
Oh my God. Prepare to scroll forward.
We rushed through it because we got to the end of the podcast and we were talking about the new issue of Thor. If anybody's interested, Lucas is dropping knowledge on Mjolnir.
Oh, there you go. For those fans of Marvel, don't forget to check out comiccrusaders.com. Your chance to see a couple of advanced reviews for books that are dropping this week, or which will have dropped by now when this show goes out. It will be Fantastic Four, The Reckoning War, Alpha #1, and of course, you can't say X-Men without thinking Sabretooth, and Sabretooth 1 is also out. So go and check out those advanced reviews when you get a chance. There you go. Cool.
Excellent.
See, that's cross promotion.
Mm-hmm.
It's like I've done a course or something. All right. Okay, next up then is the Professor's Choice. We're keeping it all hooky and spooky. Yeah. It is Ghost Rider Volume 2, #1. This is the first appearance of Danny Ketch. This is from May 1990. I've got it down as, although you think it's 92. Is that right?
No, it's 90.
Yeah. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
Excellent. All right. So this is another disparity. You can get this in the UK off a certain bidding site, eBay, for $16. Sorry, for £16. Go Collect have this at a cool $100. That's quite a disparity, that, isn't it? Really, when you think about it.
Yeah.
It's written by Howard Mackey, and I've got to be honest, I was really surprised when I did the credits for this because the art isn't by Mark Texeira, it's Javier Salterez,
right,
with inks by Mark Texeira.
Yep.
Letters are by Michael Hessler, and colors are by Gregory Wright. Excellent. The true spirit of vengeance. Dun, dun, dun. All right, Professor, what's the scoop on this?
Well, you brought up Mark Texeira, and he does become the penciler later on in this book. But in this issue, he really overwhelms Javier Salter's pencils.
Yeah.
So I mean, there are points that it's just like, oh, this is Mark Texeira. It's just, and this really is his book, right? I mean, this is where he kind of made his mark. I don't really can't think of any other books that he did that he had such a big impact in style wise.
I mean, he left this to go to Wolverine, and somehow Wolverine ends up being like elongated to like full pages. You're like,
Mhm.
dude, he's supposed to be a short ass,
Yeah.
you know. But you know, and I've
Um,
got a really great. There's a really great Birds of Prey cover featuring the Huntress, which is Mark Teixeira.
mm,
I'm thinking it's around the 60s, 66, 69, something like that. But hey, carry on.
yeah. So this book was I want to say it was a book that led to a launch of another like stable of Marvel books where they brought back all the horror stuff. They called
Mm.
it the Midnight Suns, and they relaunched Morbius, and they relaunched
Hellstrom.
Darkstalkers. Yeah, Hellstrom. Oh, that was a good book. Yeah,
Mhm.
maybe that's a future podcast book. That would be
It
good.
should be.
And
It's good stuff.
and this introduces us to Danny Ketch and his sister Barb, and it's almost kind of like it's very cinematic the way it
Mm.
starts, the way it goes through this first issue. If we remember, like the year before, we had gotten the Batman movie, so
Yeah.
I think everybody was thinking more, how is this going to work as a movie, and they updated this for the 90s, right?
Hmm.
The introduction of this villain here, Death Watch, very, very forgettable villain. Um, who somehow has like the hands ninjas working for him. So for some reason, they're not the hands ninjas. They're just dudes that look like ninjas
They're the
carrying
other hand.
guns. Yeah, it's like,
To the left hand. It doesn't know what
um,
the right hand is doing.
but for me, when I was thinking, and I reread the Marvel Spotlight issue right before I reread this, and this book seemed more of a, we want you to kind of think of the whole mystery behind everything. We're not going to kind of blow our load on this, is that he's making a deal with the devil, and he doesn't really make a deal with the devil here, right? He
Right.
puts his hand on the thing and he says, I'm going to I want to help, but he wanted to help Barb, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And he didn't make any kind of deal. He just put his hand on the gas cap, and that's how he transforms, right?
Yeah.
Transforms into Ghost Rider, who all of a sudden updated for the 90s with a kick-ass leather jacket. That motorcycle is so kick-ass with the battering ram and the flaming tires, and all of a sudden Ghost Rider has a chain that elongates and becomes like these red hot stars that
Mhm.
kill
He had a long chain.
kill ninjas with impunity. I thought he visually, this is what sold it, was visual, right? And the
Definitely.
story wasn't the greatest part of this book. It was just flipping the pictures and saying, wow, Ghost Rider actually looks like a skull, doesn't look
Mhm.
like some guy wearing a mask. It looks like the flames look like flames. The leather jacket just looks much better than the stunt rider jacket Johnny Blaze was wearing.
Mhm.
I thought he looked great for the 90s, and this is what made me pick up the book back then. Was
Definitely.
he just looked like a badass with the spikes in the wrists, and he just looked like he was not taking prisoners from anybody. And this was the big anti-hero era too, right? Because
Mhm.
we had
Start definitely
Punisher,
was, yeah.
and
Mm.
this was the next thing. I thought this book was great. Like I said, I thought it read very cinematically. Where it ended, and made me want to pick up the second issue right away.
Mhm.
And that's not something Marvel Spotlight made me think. So I want
Mhm.
right. So I wanted to say that this is, I think visually, for 1990, really, really good. And this was a great. This is the first time I ever saw Teixeira. The first time I ever saw Javier Saltares. Um, I was on the hook for this issue,
Mm.
and going forward, I want to say the first year or so on this book was really, really good.
Yeah.
Um, and then of course everything comes down to earth. But
Well, I think they just overcooked it, didn't they? I mean,
Is that
you've,
a pun?
yeah.
oh yeah,
Uh,
this was
uh,
you think of the Marvel in the 90s where everybody was everybody else's guest star to pump up the sales of the books. Spider-Man was usually the guy
yeah.
that shows up, and I believe I believe Spider-Man shows up in the third issue of Ghost Rider in this run.
Mm.
But at this point, it started to become Wolverine,
Mm,
because Wolverine was the more savage type popular character. But then Ghost Rider became that guy too. Ghost Rider started showing up in everything. Um,
mm.
and so, yeah, you're right. He was overused.
I mean, I wasn't thinking that particularly, to be fair, because that's kind of the trope for loads of comic books. I mean, eventually we find out what this demon's called in this, and so on from there. And then, of course, then you get like the bad version of him as well.
Vengeance.
It's
Yeah.
like, oh my god, are you like just because that this book suffered from hero replacement as much as the next one,
Mm-hmm.
because come 95, well, 92 onwards, I suppose, heroes were getting replaced. We'd already had USA Agent, now we're getting Thunderstrike. We'd
Yeah.
already had someone else as Iron Man. We were getting a different Batman. We had 4 different Superman at that, so eventually it was gonna, the clone saga went on for like way too long. um
And this book
Mm,
actually brought back Johnny Blaze
mhm.
with
right.
and he started running around with a Hellfire shotgun. Remember that?
Yeah,
That is actually a good idea. but
yeah.
but
Makes sense.
eventually everybody became, well, he became Ghost Rider again. Uh, you know, they didn't keep Danny Ketch as Ghost Rider, and I actually thought Danny worked as Ghost Rider
Definitely,
for
I
this era.
agree. Yeah, definitely. All right, 13th. What's your take on old Danny Boy?
Well, I remember this because there was a local shop that opened up in Brooklyn that wasn't too far from where I grew up, and I bought this there. This is one of the first books I bought there. And at the time, right, I'm just a kid, just like my knowledge of Ghost Rider was of Johnny Blaze. I knew what he looked like. I saw him, in some appearances here and there, but flashbacks or whatnot. I didn't
Mhm,
know much about Johnny Blaze like that because that was not the era I grew up in reading Johnny Blaze. But I knew of Ghost Rider. So now here we go, 1990. You see this version of Ghost Rider. I'm like, okay, I'm here for this first issue. And when I read this first issue, I was hooked, and I
mm,
stayed hooked for a long time with this run. And one of the things that appealed to me was the inks,
mm,
the darkness of the book. It already like set up that mood of, okay, Danny Ketch. So like the first scenes in Cypress Hill Cemetery, in Brooklyn. I have quite a number of family members buried in that cemetery. So I've been in that cemetery numerous times. So already with the first page of the book, I'm like, it just brought me back. It brought me
mhm,
back to that area, brought me back to like I looked at the background, and then again like the mood of the book. And unfortunately, idiots would hang out in the cemetery at night. So that brought back memories of this
mhm,
when I read this. So um whatever. The villains are cheap. You get the left hand here if that's what we want to go with. Death Watch, whatever. You got to start somewhere, right? And there has to be something that is the catalyst for this new version of the Ghost Rider to come about. And though he didn't make a deal with the devil directly, he said, "I'd do anything to save her, his sister."
mhm,
While he was saying that, he was touching the actual Ghost Rider bike. The rest is history, as Bud again so eloquently put. Yet again, this version of Ghost Rider got me hooked. The bike was like futuristic. Obviously, Ghost Rider was updated. He looked more of a punk guy, like
mhm.
ready to kick ass. He was kind of like an anti-hero's anti-hero.
Mm.
And I think that's what made him such a bad, like everybody at this time was like Wolverine was a badass. We know that. But this
Yeah.
like Ghost Rider just came out of nowhere. And here it is. And when you open the pages of this book, you're like, holy, like, well, you can't say holy in this book, but again, there's darkness in this book everywhere. If and for anyone that knew the Johnny Blaze history, if you became a Ghost Rider, something down the line is going to happen,
Mhm,
more than what you're seeing in this issue. And going back to the inks with Tex, they're so evident when you see the panels with the Kingpin.
Yeah.
oh yes, hang on.
So this is what Tex was known for, was his use of inks. So you have the artist kind of like doing the line work, but text was just. I just think later on in this run, it suffered from too much inking. Like some of the panels would drown in
Mm,
ink, and I
Mhm.
think that was something that if you want to give a knock to text, but here it's controlled.
mhm,
You know, you see a very fleshed out Kingpin. The personality is there. You know, you're like, okay, Kingpin is gonna yet make an enemy of another hero. You know, he's made enemies with Spider-Man, he made enemies with Punisher, Daredevil, of course, and now throw this version of Ghost Rider into the mix. You get Kingpin in the first issue.
mhm,
To Bud's point with the cinematics, when Danny Ketch is running into the hospital to look into his sister, you see from the first person point of view from Danny Ketch.
Yeah.
And you brought one back machine.
sorry.
Yep, right there. So you see him walking into the hospital, you see things from his perspective, and then you see him passing out. That
Mhm,
is that is brilliant right there. That's absolute genius. To bring that into a first issue. So you get more pages with the first issue. It's a brand new number one at this time. That was
mhm,
a thing. You're bringing back a character. You modified him. You passed the mantle, so to speak, to someone new. And unfortunately, this will become a trope many, many more times after this. But at this particular time in 1990, this was a hot book, no pun intended. And my favorite issue of this run is the number 15, the glow in the dark Ghost Rider
mm.
cover that you turn off the light and it would glow. I used to have that hung up in my room. I was that hooked into Ghost Rider. So hooked to the point where when he teamed up with Hulk, Wolverine, and Spider-Man to do that new FF,
Mhm.
I even read that. Just because what got me in there was Ghost Rider,
I know,
none of the other three.
I know you got to say is you thought the first Ghost Rider joining the Champions was bad.
No,
Right.
I like the Danny Ketch version. You know, like again, like this, the way it opened made me feel like this is, you know, I grew up in Brooklyn. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? So right off the bat, I'm like, you know, it feels like this is happening in my backyard, and then that appeal, the darkness,
Mm.
the
Mhm.
anti-hero aspect, like he's fighting criminals and he's fighting cops. Like he doesn't care if you're in his way, and I like that.
Well, and at this point, Marvel didn't really have any horror books on the stands, right? I mean,
Right.
this was a new concept for a kind of a new audience.
Mm.
All these, this is right before we get Jim Lee on X-Men. We get
Hmm.
right before we get McFarlane on Spider-Man. This is really kind of the beginnings of, I think, a style change at Marvel
Right.
that going forward really kind of changed up a lot of different stuff.
All right. So I think this book is absolutely the bee's knees. There is nothing about this book that I absolutely don't like. It's that simple. Um, for me, you've said it already. The fact it's dark, it's cinematic, and all that sort of stuff going on. Um, I actually think I've just done a quick check there. McFarlane started on Spider-Man in '88 when we looked at the
Okay.
book
Hmm.
previously.
Yeah.
I
So
think
it's all the
I think
same era.
yeah, no, I agree, totally agree. But what I would point out, or what I'd like to say, is that some of the art here, some of the art, the faces. I mean, that top panel there, it's pure McFarlane. It's Saltez has a McFarlane feel about it, especially when he's using civilians. It goes a little bit
Hmm.
awry when Ghost Rider turns up. It goes a bit awry when it comes to Kingpin. But generally speaking, I mean, look at that panel there where she's being,
Oh yeah. Right.
yeah, that's McFarlane, right?
Yep.
Yeah, the big eyes and everything.
Even the
Um,
hospital scene, the cinematic one that we just went
yeah.
through, the police captain there, the face reminds me of McFarlane a bit.
So I think there's definite nuances on there on show. I prefer. I can't believe I'm going to say this. I prefer the origin of this Ghost Rider over the origin of the other one, of the Blaze one, because it makes more sense. In although it, of course, is coincidental, just like spiders aren't planned to fall out from the ceiling to land on you to bite you and stuff. So, um, but there's a certain logic to it. The spilling of innocent bloods brings on the spirit of vengeance. Um, I agree with 13. This book was hot for like so long.
Hmm.
And then somewhere along the line, it just stopped being really good. I don't know
Hmm.
why. I don't know why that happened. I think,
I feel like that was because of the crossovers, like the Spirit of Vengeance story, the Marvel Presents. Um, you have that Ghost Rider Punisher Wolverine book, which should be reviewed at one point on this show. That was a phenomenal story. I think it was just Ghost Rider overload, to be honest.
Yeah, it was the oh, you like this character? Let's give you more. Let's give you
Right.
more. Let's give you more
well,
until you're sick of it.
that's all well and good, but unfortunately, it doesn't actually move the character along.
Hmm.
Um, Somewhere along the line, and I think this is probably for me part of the problem, is that Marvel had to compete with Image after this point,
Right.
and Image were all about art. So then
Mhm.
Marvel became all about art, and as a
Mhm.
consequence, you got more Ghost Rider and no Danny Ketch.
Can I
And
ask you
other
guys
things.
something? Do you
Sure.
think that the Nicolas Cage version of the Ghost Rider movie had took elements from both Johnny Blaze and Danny Ketch?
Yeah, of course.
Yeah,
I mean,
Because I feel that way.
because I mean, fair enough, it's the Johnny Blaze origin,
Right.
pretty much, but the
but
Ghost
the
Rider
there's
has
the
the
look.
leather
Yeah,
jacket and he
Right.
has the chain that does the,
Even
you
the
know.
attitude is Danny Ketch more than
Yeah,
Johnny Blaze.
so yeah, that's totally. I think it's a given that it's a myxomatosis of both of them.
even
Hmm.
Keith Williams' artwork that you have right there has the chain, doesn't it?
Correct. Yeah.
Which he didn't
So,
have in the original run. So
Correct.
all right, excellent. So there you go. We've had Ghost Rider, we've had the Spirit of Vengeance, and of course you can't say the V word without thinking I am vengeance, I am the night. And because you guys keep giving me grief about it, there you go, in your face. Let's have a bat book. There you go. Um, so the overall theme of this pod was kind of like favorite issues. I picked this because I've been out of comics for a while. And of course, Batman '89 was kicking around, and I walked into a comic book shop to find out what was going on with the good old Batman. And of course, we've mentioned it before, Brave and Bold 113, Jim Aparo art, and I'm a huge Jim Aparo fan. Lo and behold, imagine my surprise. It's 1989, a good, 10 years since I picked up a Bat book, and it's still Jim Aparo art. Fantastic Jim Aparo. So this is The Many Deaths of the Batman Part 1. It's Batman number 433. You can get this book for as little as 99 pence with the other two parts of the story.
Hmm.
It's from April '89, so it's just before the whole Batman '89 big event that kicked off. It's written by John Byrne, art by Jim Aparo, as I said, inks by Mike DiCarlo, letters by John Costanza, second time he's been shouted out today, and colours are by DC's colorist per choice, Adrian Roy. Right, so I made it easy for you guys with this book. To be fair, you should thank me because I
yeah,
made this
I
book so
was
easy.
going to.
Yeah, because I
Thank
mean,
you.
thank you. What are we going to thank me for? The fact there's only 2 words in it.
I didn't have to read it. I
Yeah,
just looked through the art.
I looked at the pictures. They're
I
pretty,
did.
pretty pictures. All right, so the main story of this is that Batman is dead. But then there is another Batman, and so on and so forth. All right, so it comes to light that the person responsible for killing all the Batman, he works out who are the people who helped Bruce Wayne become the expert in absolutely everything that he is. He goes off and he thinks, well, if I can work it out, the bad guys can work it out. And I'm not going to leave myself here. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to knock off all the previous helpies of Batman so that no one will work it out. No one will figure it out. It is that baloney of a story. But it works. Love the art. It's Jim Aparo. Love the reactions from the Penguin there. You've got Two-Face losing his nut. You've got Dick Grayson being upset when he sees it and he's out with Corey. Alfred shaken, impeccably so. He's not in the Batcave. So you're like, oh my God, what's going on? And of course, impacts all the way across. Turns out, look at that, it's not Batman, it's not Bruce Wayne. Phew.
Oh wait, that's
Saints,
Johnny Blaze.
Saints
That's fine.
preserved, as Chief O'Hara we used to say. Um, other Batman start appearing up, and it turns out that good old um, good old Bruce is somewhere out of country as Batman doing something else, which is why he's not in Gotham. What a great setup for a book. What I loved about this, we joke about the fact there's no art, but just how, sorry, no words, but look how good the art is across from page one all the way through to the end. Do you need all the words? There you go.
Nope, it's a storytelling
It's a,
force.
it is. This I see people try this a lot,
Hmm.
and I see it fail a lot.
Yep.
But every time I see it being done, this is the book I think of.
Even if it's a couple of pages of silence where the artwork is supposed to carry us from one scene to the next, there's a failure.
Yeah.
There's only one silent book that comes to mind that may be as popular as this, and that's
GI
the G.I.
Joe.
Joe. Yep.
Yep.
Which issue?
Like,
It's this. I don't know. It's a Snake Eyes issue.
is it 31? I can't remember. I'm not
There's
gonna try
one.
to guess.
There's another one kicking around, and it's I want to say I want to say it's Star Wars 71 or 73. It's in that region.
Mhm.
The gang have landed on a planet. They've heard out there's somebody who's frozen in carbonite there, and Luke and Lando and Leia go. Or Luke and Lando go off to try and solve it, leaving Chewbacca and R2 on the ship. When they don't come back, R2 and Chewie go on a mission to rescue them. So you get two pages of Chewie noises and R2D2 noises with nobody explaining what the hell they're talking about. Very good. Very good. Anyway,
Let's hear your Chewbacca machine.
okay, you do your Chewbacca. I can't do Chewbacca. You do your Chewbacca?
Maybe another time. That's a show for another day, sir.
Is it? Bad impersonations.
Yes.
All right. 13. You're the DC head amongst the rest of you two. So, what do you think of this book?
Instant classic, and John Byrne is no slouch. One of the rare artist writers that could pull it off. And I've heard stories from creators where when they're in the writing side saying that how difficult it is to write a story without an actual dialogue,
Mhm,
because you still got to tell the artist like this is why I want it to look. You got to give it that cinematic feel because you're actually going another level.
mhm,
Whereas sometimes you can get away with the words being more impactful in a panel or the art.
mhm,
Here, you're handicapping yourself. But who do you have to do the artwork? Jim Aparo. So
mhm.
what I'm upset about is how many times I've agreed with Machine in this one show. But one thing I'll always agree with him on is Jim Aparo art, and it's just classic Jim Aparo. He is very, very good at emotions. There's a splash panel of Batman. It's very symbolic. It almost looks like he was crucified in an alley. Obviously,
Hold on,
not the
I've
real
just passed.
Batman.
I've passed that. Ta-da!
But this to me is like Jim Aparo. It screams Jim Aparo because he's so good at presenting you something that's traumatizing,
Mhm,
right?
Hmm.
So we've all read of the death in the family. He did the
mhm,
same thing there. The impact of Robin dying, the faces,
mhm,
the positioning. So it's a traumatic event, but he just had a way of giving you something better than a camera angle would in a movie.
mhm.
That's how I could best describe Jim Aparo. Also, there's some even if you go like the next page machine, there's some Batman 66 angling going on there with the
Yeah,
ambulance,
check that out.
so he knew his history, and even the same like on the way on like the bottom panel with got that's
Mhm,
another tilted camera angle. So Jim Aparo could draw, and I felt he would have been a hell of a cameraman
Yeah,
for a movie. But this is exactly what an artist is supposed to do, and
yeah.
he takes the script or lack thereof, if you want to say it that way, and just gives you something different. For 1989 Batman, this is a phenomenal book. It's a quick read. There's only two words in here, but the point is made,
Mm,
and some more examples of the emotion. Penguin is upset because it wasn't him that killed Batman when the news got out. Two Face is happy. you know, and like this brought back like so many memories just seeing Dick Grayson with Starfire.
Mm,
I'm like, this issue's so old that these two were still together.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm like, yeah, you know, I miss that. I miss
yeah.
that. And then you see the emotion in Dick Grayson because, you know, at this time he was with the Titans, obviously with Starfire, an adult, and he felt helpless. And
Mm,
again, Jim Aparo he can show you trauma, but he shows you raw emotion and helplessness in a way that not many artists were able to match him with that.
mm,
Same with Alfred. You know, we can go on and so forth. Commissioner Gordon. I always felt like Jim Apparo's Commissioner Gordon artwork. I've always loved his version of Commissioner Gordon.
mm-hmm,
The old guy, very serious, emotional Jim Gordon, but he also didn't take any crap from anybody.
mm.
That's the Jim Aparo artwork that I love. This is a phenomenal issue.
I think this book symbolizes Batman just prior to when he becomes the kind of bat god that he is.
Hmm.
This next year, when you've got the Lonely Place to Die in,
Yeah,
year 3 comes out. All that's great and all, but then it just leads to him becoming like a true force of nature. And I think
yeah,
this is very much a throwback to those 70s Bronze Age type stories,
yeah,
um, which made it appeal to me.
yeah. I'll
Because
throw one more thing in here. The cover appealed to me because as a kid, when I saw the cover, it's like part 1 of 3. Whew. Okay, if I get the next 2 issues, I'll get a complete story. And if it started like this, it's gonna be good.
yeah,
So because Batman, remember, he had Detective. Batman was all over the place,
Hmm.
you'll get
and
2
he was
books at
just
this
getting.
point.
He did at this, but he was starting to, you know, you had the Justice League, right?
Was he in
So,
Justice League back then?
um,
This
in
came
the
out. This came out when Justice League was DeMatteis and Giffen.
All right,
right,
so yeah, he was. Yeah,
right.
okay, cool.
So this was only the beginning, but if you're collecting the Batman issues, you like look at the lineup: Byrne, Aparo, DeCarlo.
Hmm.
I mean, you can't go wrong. So you knew that there was going to be more in store.
Cool, excellent, good
Yeah.
roundup. And Professor, your final 2 words?
It's good. I know. The I love this book basically because that's what you like talking about. How do you tell a story when you can't say the words, right?
Uh-huh.
You have to tell the story through pictures, and who better to lay out a story for you than John Byrne, who's arguably one of the biggest artists of the '80s, and
Yeah,
I'm sure who directed Aparo well, and maybe
Mhm.
not even that much. Um, I could tell now. We go back to that splash page. You could tell that's not Bruce,
Yeah.
right? Because in Aparo's artwork, Batman's always more thinner than that, right?
Mm.
So
yeah,
as
that's
soon
true.
as I hit that splash page there, I was like, he's a bit bulky for Batman that I was used to at this point.
Mm.
But then, of course, later on in the issue, when Commissioner Gordon lifts the mask up and you see a blonde dude, the only other thing that I thought of was, well, how does Commissioner Gordon know who the hell it is under the mask anyway? You know,
Yeah.
it's not like that clued in Commissioner Gordon to the fact that it wasn't him, right?
No, and I think
So,
we buy into the fact that, you know, the reveal is for us, isn't it? The reveal's
yeah,
for the reader. It's not
that's what I meant.
as far as Gordon's concerned. That is Batman.
I was
Right.
hoping it would have been Jason Todd, but oh well.
Yes.
So yeah, this story for me, one of these things that you're like, yeah, great, thank you for the quick read, but you spend so much time looking more at the artwork
Mm-hmm.
and saying, okay, what is the artist trying to tell me about this story, and am I missing something that I should be looking at? You
Mm.
know, usually you have the words to tell you there what you miss in the story,
Yeah.
but here you have the entire story that is told through the artwork, and you need to look at the artwork to get the story.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. So this is it, isn't it? This is all show, no tell.
Hmm.
yes. So to me, I just think that these are the kind of books that you really kind of, I guess, you earn your keep as the artist, right? So
Mhm.
you really have to be on your game, and you have to be a storyteller, not just an artist. And that is what really uh, teaches you about this issue.
I tell you
So
who got paid for absolutely nothing. John Costanza.
Yeah, right. Get out. Get out. Okay, that's done.
Where can I put the
Wait,
word bubble on this pen?
Kaboom. Can I put kaboom somewhere? Can I blow something up? Can I?
Who's the other one? Or Zachowski? Yeah, no, we don't. You're good, man. You take the month off.
Yeah.
You're good.
So
We'll get this. The next few issues, the next couple of issues, the third one. In fact, the middle one gets loads of. He gets his work cut out for him. The second issue has this great part where Bruce Wayne is under police protection, and he asks Alfred to distract him so he can go downstairs into the back cave and do some work. And Alfred's complaining he has to microwave a turkey. So I never thought I'd use this contraption for such a magnificent bird. I'm like, oh, bless you. Yeah, but hey, so there you go. There's my choice. Something a little bit different. Yes, it's Batman. Book. So
3 good books.
Yeah, 3 good books. 3 different styles. You've got, you can see you've got like the very, I suppose, you've got the potentially overwritten book from the 70s explain everything. You've got the cinematic approach of the Ghost Rider from the 90s, which is all about the spectacular, the kind of
the return,
the impact of Ghost Rider, and then you've got a more sedate but not less impact version of Batman through a Pyro's eyes. So there you go. Cool. There you go. That's it. We're done for this week. We can now get our predictions in for the football. Professor?
It's going to be a Chiefs 49ers Super Bowl.
Chiefs 49ers. 13th?
I want to see the Chiefs and the Rams only because the Rams they're under pressure to get that game into Los Angeles. So, and I'm also rooting for Droop, Eminem, Dre. Also rooting for that. Can't wait for the halftime show.
That's a bit I normally fall asleep at. I honestly, it's like the break. It's a great 40 minutes. I can snooze. Bring it on. I don't think they will, but I would like to see the Bengals get past the Chiefs. I don't think they will. I think the Chiefs are just too dominant all over the shop. The AFC is the hard one to choose, the hard one to go with. I'd like to see the Rams get through, I think, because I think Stafford's due. But then I think
he's been playing well of late.
I think Garoppolo deserves some credit as well for sticking out a really dodgy situation, especially at the beginning of the season. Let's see what happens. That was me. That was me sitting on the fence like nobody's business. Excellent. Okay.
Who's going to win the Pro Bowl?
AFC.
Agreed.
I have no idea. I'm just picking one. All right. Don't forget to check out UCPM for all your favorite pods, including Professor.
The No Prize Podcast, all about Marvel Comics, Disney Plus, and the MCU.
And don't forget to check out Outside the Panels for a host of interviews with indie comic book creators. There's a couple of new episodes on there now. There will be a couple coming up the week after. And of course, don't forget to check out the site that started us all off at comiccrusaders.com, where you get news and reviews across the board on music, comic books, movies, even wrestling. Go and check out what happened at the last wrestling pay-per-view. Go and check it out. It's on there. Go now. Read. All right. There you go. All right, guys. Been a blast. Enjoy the championship round, and I will see you all in a fortnight.
Hasta la vista.
Thanks, Johnny.